Hi, I'm John Mallis. Welcome to this live edition of Connect with Me on the showroom floor at Ventura TV on this Wednesday morning. Glad you're here. We have the current owner of the Fresno Grizzlies in the house after that big, huge, gigantic, massive crowd last night. Boy, do I sound repetitive on this Wednesday morning. It was gigantic, that crowd, standing room only. We'll talk to him about the potential sale of his team, last night's crowd, and yes, I guess there really are baseball fans right here in the city of Fresno. 436-ME-TV, option 11. Back in a moment.
Tonight I want to discuss the importance of the television medium to the American people.
Glad you're back here, and glad you survived the 4th of July celebrations last night. You can hear them all over the city of Fresno, including at Chuck Chansey Park. The Chuck had a huge fireworks display after that ball game last night, a massive ball game with a massive crowd. And we'll talk about that during the course of the program here today, because we have the current owner in the house. He's been here well, quite a few times actually, and he's a very good friend of mine, a very good friend of this program's. And you can call in and ask any question you'd like today on the program for the duration of the hour. But I want to give you a quick programming note for tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll have a young lady here in the studio along with her surgeon. She went through this bariatrics surgery at the Fresno Heart and Surgical Center. Very successful. This young lady is only, I think, I could be mistaken here, late 20s, sounds right to me, or early 30s. She was on the program once before, but talking about her athletic prowess. I mean, she is really a big-time athlete, works out at, what is it, one of the boot camps here in the city of Fresno. So that'll be a very interesting program. Surgery to reduce weight on your body. Is it healthy? Is it the right thing to do? Or should you avoid it? We'll talk to the surgeon. He's going to be on here tomorrow. Then on Friday, as we head into the weekend, another barn burner, just like today. We'll have Jim Costa, the congressman from right here in the Central Valley. As you know, Congress is on this big, massive break right now. It's the holiday break, the 4th of July. They'll be back in session next Monday, and of course the Senate will take up the health bill. But Jim Costa will be here to talk about Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, what they're going to do about James Comey, what he thinks about the president. You can call in and ask all the questions you'd like of Jim Costa. I've known him for a long time, but his first appearance on the program, so he has no problem in coming on. In the meantime, you're watching us live on Comcast, channel 375 as usual. It's a live program, 10 to 11 o'clock in the morning, every Monday through Friday, of course, 436-ME-TV, option 11. If you don't have Comcast cable, it's not a problem, because we've got 43.6 and 13.1 over-the-air broadcast with one of those digital antennas out there hanging from the rafters here inside Ventura TV, and they're very affordable. And so we're open all day here if you want to come in and search around and buy one of those antennas and put it up. It's called free TV these days, and you can get over 100 free TV channels in the city of Fresno. So purchase one of those if you'd like. The replay, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 13.6 YouTube, 8 o'clock tonight, 4.6 Biz TV. We don't have the highlights, my friends, but I'll tell you what, we can talk about it right here on the program today. This gigantic crowd at the Chuck last night, over 14,000 people on the 4th of July to see the Grizzlies play a baseball game, and it was Taco Tuesday, and they had the fireworks display after. The Grizzlies actually won the game, yes, but here's the thing. They had standing room. The place only holds 12,500, technically speaking, give or take a few, right? I'm not going to, nail it down to the exact seat, but they had one of the biggest crowds in this city's history for a baseball game. It was amazing. And so the question begs, well, if you could get 14,000 plus for a baseball game on the 4th of July, why can't you average like 10,000 a game? They're averaging over 6 now. Yes, they can, because there are baseball fans here. It's not only soccer. I want to roll the videotape, my friends. You know the story with the Fresno Grizzlies. They've been here for 20 years. They've been playing at the Chuck for quite a number of years as well. They've been up for sale for quite some time, and now it appears that Chris Cummings, the current owner of the Fresno Grizzlies, has a very serious buyer, and this looks like a very serious proposition. And so what the Fresno City Council did last Monday is they ratified a new agreement between the city and the Grizzlies, which takes down the rent. Obviously, we'll talk about that. The new potential owners are Ray and Michael Baker of Colorado, Jim Kofus of Southern California. We'll talk about them in just a moment. But Cummings bought the team back in October of 2005. Grizzlies moved into the Chuck 3 years earlier. On average, the attendance is slightly up from last year. As I mentioned, over 6,500 a game. As for the gritty details in the report, the yearly rent for the Grizzlies would be reduced from $750 a year to $500,000 a year, with $100,000 payments made in April, May, June, July, and August. A good deal for the new owners to come in and take over the team. Chris Cummings is elated about this potential right now, and he is live in our studio right now, the current owner of the Fresno Grizzlies, Chris Cummings. A great deal for the potential owners, a great deal for this man, Chris Cummings, the current owner. And what can you say about the city of Fresno? You know, they were put in this position a long time ago, so they're picking up a little bit more of the tab to pay off the bond. But we're, you know, as George Hofstetter put it, George is a good friend of mine too, he says, we're over the hump. We're more than halfway there in paying off the bond debt for the stadium here in the city of Fresno. Now, the other question is, and ask yourself this question as you're watching this program today, can you imagine downtown Fresno without Grizzly Stadium? What would be there? Would it be a garbage dump? Would it be a parking lot? What would it be? Aren't you glad the stadium is there? The team is there? We can do something to improve the situation. 436-ME-TV, option 11. It looks like that improvement is on the way. Back with your phone calls in just a moment.
Want to create something extraordinary? Create perfection. Our lifestyle appliances make it easy. KitchenAid, Ventura TV appliance, and you, when only the best will do.
Take a look at this. Let's play.
This is too hip for you. I'll slow down.
Let's play.
Watch all your favorite classic game shows on Buzzer TV, KBBC Digital Channel 13.7.
By the way, David Taub of GV Wire and George Hofstetter, good friends of this program, they come on a lot. They confirmed the new potential owners for the Grizzlies, as did the mayor. Lee Brand was on here last Friday, and I'll tell you what, he has talked to the new potential owners several times about the lease agreement, you know, a little too high and a little bit unrealistic to have put that deal together in the beginning when it was first the Diamond Group and John Carburet for $1.5 million a year, because the mayor said, look, I mean, in the beginning they had all these ideas about how they were going to make and generate revenue. Well, it didn't come to fruition, and so the problem is no money coming in, not enough events there, and so now the situation has changed. The rent is going to come down, and we'll see what happens when these new owners come in. Chris Cummings is here. Good to see you, my friend.
It's good to be here.
I'm glad that you know, this thing is finally happening for you. And before I get into any details about this, which I've already talked about, how elated are you?
Well, I'm very happy. You know, we've been working toward this for about 4 years now. We've made it substantially down the road with a couple of other parties, and mainly medical issues have intervened and have caused the deals to evaporate. So we're very close on this one. Can I go back just a few seconds?
Absolutely.
You were just talking about the original concept behind the stadium and the multiple uses. But you have to understand that when they first constructed this stadium, there was a different atmosphere in Fresno.
Yeah.
Save Mart Center hadn't been constructed.
Yeah.
The casinos weren't doing concerts. So if you were trying to run a concert through the city, your option was Selland Arena, Convention Center, or Chukchansi Park. Unfortunately, at the same time that Chukchansi Park was being constructed, other options opened up, and instead of just having a couple of entities vying for these concerts, there are now 8 or 10 entities that are trying for them.
Right.
Now, we're one of the least efficient because as a ballpark, we don't have the concert infrastructure built into our stadium.
Yeah.
So it costs more to operate in our stadium than it does at the Save Mart Center. And that's really why the multiple uses didn't materialize the way they were conceived.
Yeah, you're right, because it was a completely different atmosphere. It was very contentious between the city council and the current mayor at that time. It was Jim Patterson, who was the mayor before Alan Autry. Patterson was dead set against this deal, and there was a big swing vote in there. I think Sal Quintero was the final swing vote on that to override Patterson's veto. And so as I recall correctly, I don't know, I'd have to go back and check, but I think it was Sal. And so, you didn't have all these other options.
Correct.
And so, they were basing it on maybe added tax, room tax, parking, concessions. All of that has not come to pass, only because the events haven't been there.
Absolutely true. Now, we've found a mechanism by which we can get some ancillary income, and that's through soccer matches.
Okay.
Now, we're running the Fuego through the ballpark, and if you go to the ballpark now and look at the outfield, you can see the outline, the white lines for the field that are still faintly visible. So we're running all of our Fuego games there. We're getting a fairly sizable crowd for those games, so that's a help.
Sellouts, almost.
Well, we're not at sellouts for the
No, but
Fuego.
you got huge crowds for that.
Now, we have Mexican soccer teams that are coming in, and those are immensely successful.
Yep.
So, and those can be sellouts. And things like that, if we can run football games through in the fall, if we can run more baseball through when the team's out of town, a few concerts, and concerts will work if the performers are willing to use stages that aren't massive. Our problem is that most of the brand named performers want huge stages so they can hang all of their equipment and their video boards off of it, and that's what drives the cost so high that it doesn't work.
Here's what went through my mind when the council renegotiated this deal between your team and the Grizzlies. I thought, okay, look, this is 2017. Chris has been looking to sell the team for years. Why didn't they negotiate this great deal for you a few years ago instead of doing it just because you're selling the team and now the new owners have? I mean, why didn't that happen earlier?
Well, it's actually a good...
Did you ever wonder that?
Well, you bet your life I have, and my partners have too. Now, if you look at it, and the way I look at it, and first, there is no way that I would say anything outside of grateful comments
Right.
pertaining to the city council, the mayor's office, and every time we need something or we need help or we need advice, they are always there for us, working with us, helping us. So there's in no way am I trying to say anything about the city that isn't positive.
Right.
However, when you look at it, my partners and I have had to fund $1 million plus per year to keep the team operating.
For how many years now?
Well, it's been
Since 2005.
10 years or 11
yeah,
years.
11 years.
So we've been doing that, and the fact that a deal is on the table for new owners but not for us is a little bit disheartening.
Baffling.
But on the other hand, we went to the table back in 2009 and were granted some relief. Unfortunately, the timing of that trip to council was terrible. It was right at the height of the recession.
Oh.
And they were talking about layoffs and city employees, police and fire departments. So for us, and Lee Brand was one of the architects who helped us craft something that basically allowed us to keep moving forward. And that's what allowed us to get to the point we're at today, where we have somebody who can come in. So I would wish that these deal terms could have been made available to us, but I also understand that we took a bite from the apple, and we actually took a second bite in 2013.
I
And
know.
politically, there are only a certain number of bites in an apple, so I can't begrudge the city, but I can
Yeah.
wish that these terms had been made available to us.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, I often wonder what happened. These are just things that go through my head as, as these things happen here, and I don't know, some weird things go through my head. But here's one thought that can't cross my mind is Henry Perea was also running for mayor, and he was saying, no, this thing shouldn't be at $750 a year. We need to jack that thing up to the original price of $1.5 million a year.
Right.
You ever think of what would have happened had he been elected mayor? Let me hold on to this call. Caller, hang on a moment. I'll get to you in just a minute. Had you ever thought about that at all?
I have, and actually, Henry is he's a good, thoughtful person.
Yes.
And I don't think he would have done anything that would have caused risk to the team. And frankly, if there were other concessions granted on the lease, I'd be happy to pay $1 million, $1.5 million in rent. For example, if we weren't responsible for utilities, that's a $450,000 swing.
Ooh.
If we weren't responsible for operating expenses,
Yeah.
that's $1 million swing. So no matter how you cut it, for a business to be viable, you really have to have numbers that work and that are in balance.
You've got to bend and
So I'd be happy to pay $1.5 million if there was some relief in other areas, or I'd be happy to pay zero in rent and make a donation to the city. Bottom line is, net number of dollars out is pretty much defined by the actual income expense statement.
see, the city, and I know the city officials were worried, gee, if we don't cut the right deal, we might lose the team too. I mean, you don't want the team going bankrupt, and then you don't have a team. But on the other hand, we have to cut, I'm sure they were thinking, I'm just surmising here, at least that's what I would do. A reasonable person would say, well, we have to, cut some kind of a deal that's reasonable to the owner to let the owners afford to be able to stay here, because if we lose the team, that's the worst case scenario.
Absolutely, that would be the worst case. But frankly, the change they made in 2010 created a situation that was survivable.
Yeah.
And in 13, it defined parameters under which we could at least go out and solicit interest. And then last week we defined terms that actually make the deal viable for a new owner. So
Yeah.
right now we're at the point where the lease issue is addressed. I can say that every member of the ownership group, and you did list off a partial list of them.
Right. It's only,
Every member has ownership in another baseball team, at least one. So they're all experienced. Whereas when I came aboard, I was totally inexperienced and frankly a bit too self-assured. I should have been a lot more careful back then. But
Since these are all baseball people, will it make a difference because they know how baseball works? Not on the field. I'm not talking about on the field, but
Right.
behind the scenes,
The business.
operationally.
These guys are first class. They do have experience. Their ownership of teams puts them in a position where they do know more, and I think they're going to come in and be a great addition to the Fresno scenery.
Hey, are we still going to see you at the ballpark once this whole thing is done?
Absolutely, but now you'll see me with a smile on my face as opposed to looking worried about
yeah.
whether we have enough people in the stadium. So I'm looking forward to being a fan.
Caller, go ahead. You're on the air with Chris Cummings, the current owner of the Fresno Grizzlies.
Oh, I'm sorry, I could barely hear you, John.
Go ahead.
Excuse me. And listening to this gentleman right now, it sounds to me like really there is no viable way to have a franchise or a baseball team in Fresno with all of the, with all the costs and so forth and the lack of attendance. I think it sounds like like it was $1.5 million for the lease per year. Now it's down to $500,000 and maybe even less. And And so, I mean, you're talking about cutting away a whole bunch of money from the leases and so forth, and then you talk about the gentleman here saying, oh, it's almost $500,000 in terms of utilities and blah, blah, blah. So it sounds like there is really no viable way of making a team work in Fresno, because, I mean, it's just, the Fresno just doesn't have that kind of support for a team, and it never has. I mean, you go back to the days of Euless Park, when we had the Giants in Euless, and it was never a sold-out ballpark every day, and that was a tiny little ballpark. But you have a 15,000-seat stadium that hardly gets anything in there, and the fact that there is no supplemental events, such as concerts and so forth. I think the only concert that has ever gone on there was back in 2009 when you had what's his name, Bob Dylan, have a concert there at the.
I think
stadium.
the Beach Boys were there.
And the Beach, again, there have been two since the stadium, since the inception of the stadium. So so I think there's just a lot of things that have gone on that have shown that a stadium of that magnitude is just not viable.
Yeah, but wait a minute, caller. Let me, and I'm going to let Chris here chime in, but I just have to turn the sound down on your TV or mute it, please.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So you'll be able to hear me. Can you hear me now? I can still hear his TV.
Sure enough.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right. Can you imagine Fresno without that stadium? It would be a parking lot or some kind of an other. I mean, maybe it would just be an empty lot, a dirt lot.
I can see Fresno with an empty lot there, and maybe.
So you think that would be better for the city of Fresno to have an empty lot there?
That $37 million, whatever how much it costs to build that stadium, going towards police, going towards infrastructure, going towards opening up the downtown. I'm sorry, John. You had me turn down my TV, and I can't hear you on the phone.
Okay, go ahead. We can hear you.
Okay. So you're talking about a lot of things that have been going on downtown to revitalize downtown that are going on outside of the stadium being built, right? I mean, we built the stadium. It did not revitalize downtown, okay? So forget about the stadium. I mean, so whether the stadium was an empty lot or we built the stadium, it did not revitalize downtown. So for people to say, well, we should have built the stadium or not, that's a moot point, okay? We lost the Fresno Diamond Group. We lost these owners now to now we have the Houston Astros here now. Now we're going to have supposedly another new ownership here. So so it just shows that the stadium did not do anything for downtown Fresno or for the city of Fresno as a whole, except to make it more and more of a debt.
All right.
And a baseball team that cannot sustain itself, even in such a great revenue, even in such a great stadium.
Caller, let Chris respond. Hang on. Don't hang up.
Well, first of all, the notion that the stadium and the baseball team in Fresno is not viable is simply not correct. There are a couple of things that have happened over the last year that are making it so that it is viable. We inherited a food service agreement that was not very friendly to us. This last year, with the help of the city, we negotiated a new food service agreement, and that change in food service agreement should allow us to generate almost $500,000 more in revenue. Now, frankly, when the team is sold and some of the administrative labor burden is taken off of it, that will have another positive impact on the economics. And the third thing is the lease. The city's still getting $500,000 a year in rent. They're still getting somebody to come in and help them with the capital improvements and co-invest in the upkeep of the facility. We're providing jobs between the food service company and the Grizzlies for 400 or 450 full and part-time people. We are generating incremental tax revenues, and I would contend that having this team here is incredibly positive for Fresno, because without a team, we're just another valley company or another valley city that's sitting here with no reason for it to exist. Now, Fresno State is great for the community. I love the fact that they're here. They've got a good sports organization. having a AAA baseball team, there are only 30 of them in the country, and I think having that team here does, in fact, do a lot for the city.
And not only that, caller, hang on before you chime in here. I do want to mention a couple of things that will generate revenue for capital improvements for the city of Fresno, actually the baseball stadium, the Chancey Park, and that's the Capital Reserve Fund. So initially the city is going to put in $3 million. According to the deal, the seller is going to put in 1.25, and the buyer is going to put in $1 million. And so after that, everybody puts in $300,000 a year. The owner and the city of Fresno. That's for, you know, if Gate 2 needs repairing, if Section 14 needs new seats. That's what that money is for. On top of that, if you go play golf, if you go play tennis, any city park, and you have to pay a fee, that will generate some funds for the city to help in that regard as well. So you have other tax revenue that's coming in to try to make it more viable. It's talking about the APIS fees.
Right, the APES fee.
Yeah, the APES fee.
That's correct. That generates
not only that, hang on, caller, not only that, the owners, the new owners, have promised to come in. I don't know if it's in the contract or what, I haven't seen a contract, but to put on 100 events a year in addition to baseball.
Correct.
So that's going to help. Now, the other point I want to make, and I'll let you pick it up from here, caller, that stadium cannot by itself revitalize downtown Fresno. That's only one item. You have to fill in the entire picture. If you go to San Diego, they have a ballpark, but they have everything else around it. Fresno's trying to build everything else around it, just like San Francisco. The baseball stadium alone can't do it. Am I right?
Absolutely correct.
Go ahead, caller.
But John, as you recall, back when this stadium was first put into blueprints, the city council said this is the jewel that's going to bring everything downtown. This is what's going to pull everybody's going to want to come downtown to come to this place, to this stadium, and watch baseball. And it has not happened. And in fact, the fact that we have been cutting back on the lease in terms of in terms of the rent and so forth, but you still, I don't see much in terms of public relations work, in terms of advertising the baseball team, in terms of putting out, well, this is what we offer you at a stadium, but you'll take your money and run, you'll take your $500,000 in savings and run, but you don't put it back out in terms of advertisements and that kind of thing, and in terms of investing back into your team.
No, that's not true, because I'm going to say something. Hang on a second.
You're going to make $500,000 with a new food services program. Why wouldn't you want to help the city in terms of the lease by putting that towards the rent?
But here's,
you talked about making. There's a fund you guys are creating, right? $3 million is going to be put in by the city of Fresno, and only 1.2 by one entity, and 1.5 by another entity. So you see, the two entities don't even come close to matching the city of Fresno. So again, the city of Fresno and its taxpayers are taking on the brunt of that war chest to maintain the facility, and that's going to continue on.
Yeah, but I don't think you're going to find. I don't think you're going to find any venue around the country, whether it be the new arena in Sacramento, the new stadium in San Diego, and I got to go because I got to go to break. But that's a great.
The new arena in Sacramento, John, is owned by the owners of the Sacramento Kings.
I know, but
I would say to this owner who's coming in, why don't you buy the stadium if it's so viable? Why don't you purchase the stadium yourselves if it's such a great deal?
But do you know how much taxpayer money went into building that new arena in Sacramento? A lot of money. And Kevin Johnson, the former mayor, who I'm sure you know, he was instrumental in saving the Kings. But he got business people together from around the Sacramento Valley, but he also had to use taxpayer money. There isn't one venue across the country that's new that doesn't use taxpayer money. It's got to be done.
And John, okay, the Maloof brothers match the city of Sacramento. But here's the thing I want to ask you. How much did the Fresno Diamond Group at the time match the city of Fresno in terms of building this new stadium? None. And again, the ownership, as it goes down the line through the years, the ownership has still asked the Fresno to concede more and more debt. Okay. By lowering the
I gotta go to break, and we'll contend some of those points. But good call. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
caller. Thank you very much for chiming in today. That call took up a lot of time, but that's okay. I appreciate your time in calling in. And we now have an open phone line, 436-ME-TV, option 11. We'll pick up on some of the points the caller made after the break. 436-ME-TV, option 11. Back with Chris Cummings in just a moment.
The following is a list of celebrities you will not see on MeTV programs. Charlie Sheen, Lindsay Lohan, Snooki, Paris Hilton, Perez Hilton, Honey Boo Boo, Justin Bieber, Simon Cowell, Chris Brown, Miley Cyrus, and the Real Housewives of any place. This is who you will see on MeTV programs. Lucy, Ralph, Mary, Perry, Gilligan, Kenneth, Spock, Batman, Rowdy, Festus, and the Beaver. MeTV. Thanks for watching.
When you like Ventura TV Appliance on Facebook, it's nice. But when you love the Frigidaire Gallery appliances we deliver, it's even better. Our website is cool, and it's a good place to start. But you really should touch the merchandise before you buy. Time for that upgrade to an Energy Star qualified French door Frigidaire Gallery refrigerator. Quality appliances for the way you live. Get the best selection, price, and service in town without waiting. Come in to Ventura TV Appliance and touch the merchandise.
All right, a couple of points that caller made, and we'll move on here and let Chris Cummings comment on this too. And 436-ME-TV, option 11, we have the current owner of the Fresno Grizzlies in. We have an open phone line. One of the points the caller made is the original deal didn't come to pass. You know, why didn't the Diamond Group pitch in and buy part of the stadium, all that kind of stuff? Well, back then they were hoping to generate revenue from concerts, which didn't happen, room tax, which didn't happen, concessions, parking, which didn't happen, because all you had down there was baseball, and it was new. Yes, people were going, but it wasn't generating that kind of revenue, which is, like I said, if you want to generate a lot of revenue around that stadium, and I'm talking about tax dollars, you need to build restaurants, movie theaters, whatever else. And this guy and his staff over there, his Grizzly staff, hang on, caller, get to you in a moment, has done a phenomenal job in promoting with all these events like Taco Throwdown Night. They've been very creative in that promotions department. Tell me what I've said. Have I said anything wrong?
No, and absolutely. And I really appreciate the comments that first caller made. And it is difficult, but I will tell you, it's a heck of a lot easier to use hindsight to make the decision on
caller,
when and where to build a ballpark. Then, looking at it from today, you might be able to make arguments about whether it was the right product at the right size at the right place. But the fact of the matter is, it is a product that was funded with city dollars, municipal funding, and we've got to make it viable and make sure that it remains viable forever.
Well, that's what the mayor said last Friday. Look, this deal was made before I even got into office, before I became a city councilman. We have to deal with the cards that are on the table now. Okay, we can't go back in time and just look at the Raiders deal. Tell me one stadium or one venue that's been built without taxpayer money. The city of Oakland is partly at fault for not approaching the Raiders sooner, but the bottom line is, the Raiders have this great deal because the city of Las Vegas, which I guess has lots of money, they're going to chip in a lot of money to build that new stadium. And Davis, Mark Davis, not Al Davis, he's passed away, but he's looking for the best possible deal for him. Teams don't want to lose money; they want to make money, and sometimes, I guess, basically, the city has to take more of the brunt.
Correct, and you mentioned it earlier. It's the incremental room tax and meals tax and sales tax. It's the addition to the employment roles for the city, the number of people who are hired for introductory management, upper management positions. And then when you have development that's adjacent to the ballpark, you have more salaries and more people who are paying taxes. You have to look at the overall picture. Now, when Chukchansi Park was built, there was a lot of talk about doing a very large construction project down in that area with a large number of residential units. I think it was Forest City that was coming in and talking to the city.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, just as they were about to move forward, the recession hit, the redevelopment authority evaporated. all of the support that the city was going to offer to get that jump start to the residential community downstairs evaporated, and it's been very difficult to get that to regenerate those,
that revenue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Caller, you're on the air with Chris Cummings. Go ahead. Caller.
Hello.
Yeah, caller.
Hello.
Hi. You're
Can
on
you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go. You're on the air.
Okay. I just want to say that we're major fans of the Grizzlies. And I just want to say, though, is that I just think that if the ticket prices were less, that you could get way more people in if you charge less. And then I think you could make that up in what you lose in the ticket price, you make up in the concession stand.
Well, I can address that. If you look at our website, FresnoGrizzlies.com, you can see some of the specials that we're offering, and we have incredibly reasonable specials on like Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. So if you look at that, you can find that you can afford to bring your family and feed your family and have a drink without spending more than you would spend at a movie theater, and probably substantially less than you'd spend at a movie theater. If you want to go on a Friday or a Saturday and some Thursdays, it's more expensive because the demand is a lot higher. But I think we can deal with the affordability issues as long as people can go Sunday through Wednesday, and we have some great specials.
Oh, okay. I trust you're the businessman. So I love the Grizzlies, and thank you very much for having them here. And we just wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, and we appreciate every fan who's out there.
All right. Thank you very much for the call. So is there any chance that maybe the new owners will come in and they might lower the ticket prices, might lower the prices in the concession stands? Do you think there's a possibility of that?
Well, if you look at this year over last year, with us in control over the concessions, the beer prices were decreased.
Okay.
And some of the food prices were decreased, and I think we held the line on virtually every product. So we took that hit this year to make ourselves more competitive and make us a better alternative for family entertainment.
Yeah.
Ticket pricing, again, we have some ticket prices that are pretty darn low, and we have some...
Hang on, caller, get to you in a moment.
Some midweek specials that are... You can't beat
like you
them.
said just a moment ago, Monday and Tuesday, you got something, and Thursday?
Correct. We have some great specials, and just look at the website and you can see what the alternatives are.
All right, caller, go ahead. You're on the air with Chris Cummings, the owner of the Grizzlies. What is your comment, your question?
Oh, I love the Grizzlies. The problem is I think we would have more people if the parking was free on game days. The city of Fresno charges too much to park down there. A family can't afford parking and go to the games.
Well, I think the parking
I was just wondering what the owner thought about the parking situation.
Okay, hang on, ma'am. Yeah, hang on.
I think the parking is $6 per car per game. And we haven't encountered a whole lot of resistance from fans about paying that fee.
Is that the city that sets that fee?
No, we can actually set that fee, and it was $5 from 2002 until like 2014, and then we increased it by $1.
Okay.
So we haven't had any negative feedback. We've tried a couple of special occasions to have free parking days that were provided by our corporate partners, and it really hasn't changed the number of people who end up in the ballpark. It just changes the revenues.
Caller, does $6 a car sound reasonable to you or no?
No, because that's only in the designated parking lots, but if you want to park elsewhere, you're still going to have to use the city meters.
Well, I don't know if the city meters are still being read after 7 o'clock at night, so
Oh, yeah. They'll put that special event signs up. Anytime anything happens downtown, they have those special event signs going after all hours.
So the meters are running after 7? I thought they quit doing that.
Yes. Nope, you'll still get a ticket.
Wow, because I remember quite a few years ago when fans were complaining they were coming out to put, you know, money in the meter during the Grizzly games, but I thought they stopped doing all of that. Caller, are you
No,
there?
I beg to differ.
Okay, well, I don't know. I'm just asking. I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's something you should check on.
Okay, what do you think
Especially
about
with the
this?
road going two-way down on Fullerton, your revenues are going to go downhill because there's nothing down there but the ballpark to go to.
Well, I'll look at that, but I don't think it's an issue. But I'll agree to take a look at it. And I think we typically have ample parking in the spiral parking lot on Kern Street.
Yeah.
And we have our park.
Well, got to turn her up.
See, I'm a handicapped person. That's why it's hard for me to get downtown. There's not enough handicapped parking that's free.
Well, actually, in our staff parking lot, which is off of Inyo.
It's Inyo Street.
There we have some handicapped parking spaces in there. If you want to get in touch with us in advance and make arrangements, we'll be able to help you with that kind of parking. That shouldn't be an obstacle for you.
Construction too has been a hard time getting down there and going to the different streets.
Well,
with all the construction.
I think that's there have been a few nights when that's been a little bit more of a problem, but it's typically pretty easy to get there. So again, if you want to contact our ticket office,
which is what number?
320-TIXX or S. Call us or go to FresnoGrizzlies.com. And again, we can help you. We can let you know if there are any any traffic issues you need to be aware of, and we can help you with handicap parking.
Does that sound like a fair deal, ma'am? Is that okay?
Yeah, but I would still talk to the city because once the street opens up over there, I mean, people are not going to pay for parking. But if you partner with some of the businesses in the area, like Tioga Sierra, a lot of people go over there after the games or before the games. I would start networking with some of the businesses in the area to also draw in customers.
Okay, I'll talk to the city's parking folks about the status of the meters and how late they read the meters for Grizzlies games. I know for events over at the Selland Arena that they do have wording on their meters that says they are off at 7 o'clock unless there's a special event. So she has a point over there, but I didn't think they were still doing that with us.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't been down there in a while, so I thought that they cut that off at 7 p.m. Maybe she's right. I have no idea, so you'll check on it. Chris Cummings is here, 436-ME-TV, option 11. Back with more of your phone calls, and we have an open phone line, so call in. Back in a moment.
When you like Ventura TV Appliance on Facebook, it's nice. But when you love the Samsung big screen we deliver, it's even better. Our website is cool, and it's a good place to start. But you really should touch the merchandise before you buy. Time for that upgrade to an HD 3D web-enabled Samsung TV. Get the best selection, price, and service in town without waiting. Come in to Ventura TV Appliance and touch the merchandise today.
The Justice Network is here. If you haven't tuned in, you're missing a great lineup of gripping stories of real crime, plus an unprecedented effort by viewers like you to play an active role in making your community safer. You can help support law enforcement by providing information that may lead to the apprehension of dangerous criminals or find a missing child. Great shows and your chance to fight crime, only on the Justice Network.
Back here on the program, 436-ME-TV, option 11. Chris Cummings is here, the current owner of the Fresno Grizzlies. Kerry, let's roll a videotape on the Grizzlies Stadium, the aerial shot. We've seen that before. It's such a beautiful venue, and it is one of the best looking minor league baseball parks, AAA parks in the entire country. Built several years ago, of course. And before I get to the call here, we do have a caller waiting, but you're going to have to please hang on for a moment, because I want to ask you, Chris, about the new owners, Ray Michael Baker of Colorado. It's father and son. Jim Kofus of Southern California. Baker is the head of the stadium district that operates both Coors Field, that's the baseball home for the Colorado Rockies. By the way, they're in a little bit of a slump right now. Yeah. And in Vesco Field, that's where the Denver Broncos play. Baker and his son own the Grand Junction Rockies, a rookie league affiliate of the Colorado Rockies. And Kofus was the co-owner of a single-A High Desert Mavericks team of the California League. The question to you, I guess, Chris, would be, how long have you been in talks with these groups here and these people here? And when did it hit you that this really is a possibility now?
Well, we first started talking to these folks well over a year ago, but it was more or less in fits and starts. We'd talk with them for a few weeks, and then there'd be silence for a few weeks.
Did they like the stadium?
Oh, they love the stadium, and they really like the fact that there are opportunities to do things downtown too. So that wasn't an issue. There are some changes that they want to make to the stadium to decrease the number of seats and increase the number of party areas, but it's not going to be a massive change in the ballpark. It's going to be some more or less subtle changes that are going to make it a little bit more user-friendly for us.
Do the owners realize that the baseball stadium alone is not going to revitalize downtown Fresno? Do they understand Fresno politics? And furthermore, do they see the potential in downtown if the city and business owners come together, and maybe outside business owners, corporations come in and they fill in the gaps? Do they understand all this? Do they see the potential?
Absolutely. And if you look at the Fulton Mall and Fulton Street and the changes that are happening there, the investment by the public that's going to be happening in that area, that's a big positive. If you look at the high-speed rail, whether you're a supporter of high-speed rail or not, the fact that the high-speed rail is going to be coming through Fresno, adjacent to the ballpark, that's going to bring a lot of people down into the area. There are going to be a lot of jobs that are going to be filled by that. You look at companies like Bitwise that are growing by leaps and bounds, and that's probably one of the most progressive and strongest of the downtown free market companies. I love their leadership. You look at the breweries that are cropping up all over the place, and this is happening in a number of cities. It's very, very positive. That's going to bring more people down. I look at the stadium and think, okay, when I first got here, there wasn't a whole lot that was happening, but Assini was started up in the tower and started moving down with development. Terrence Frazier has been a great proponent of development. He's done a lot in the downtown area.
He's got a future there with that project going out there just beyond the left center field fence there.
Absolutely. He's assembled a lot of acreage.
Yeah. Now just keep in mind, and I'm going to say this over again, I sound like a broken record, and a caller, I'll get to you in a second here. It's not going to be just the ballpark that's going to revitalize down. It's not going to be just the street that they're going to open up. It's not going to be one brewery. It's going to have to be entertainment. You know, when you go to AT&T Park, for example, I'll just use that as an example, and I know it's Major League Baseball, but I've been there so many times, and after a game, it's so easy to just mill around and walk through the restaurants and maybe grab a bite to eat, maybe get a drink, maybe look at the souvenirs and just hang. There's no place to hang downtown except for a couple of places. So after a ball game, people want to hang with their families. That's the only way I can describe it. I like to hang and just go look around and sightsee. And do you agree with that?
I agree with it. And if you look at cities like El Paso, El Paso has a beautiful area around the ballpark with bars and restaurants and hotels. If you look at Oklahoma City, they've got a beautiful area.
Yeah.
If you look in San Antonio, and San Antonio is about to go from a Texas League team to a AAA team, they have a beautiful area, and they're considering building a new ballpark, and that ballpark should be, it's probably going to cost in excess of $100 million to put in.
Wow.
You know, and the trick in my mind to having a successful ballpark is having the ancillary development happen contiguously with the development of the ballpark. And in Fresno, it didn't. The timing didn't work right,
Yeah,
and then we
never
hit the
happened.
recession.
Yeah. All right.
I think we have a caller that.
Caller, go ahead. You've been patient, very patient. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
What's your question?
I don't think that the timing or anything like that has been the problem with Fresno. I think it's just that, well, like the past census that stated 86% of the population in Fresno lives in poverty, from the poverty level 20,000 to extreme poverty, which is below 10,000. So you have 86% of the population in Fresno that lives in poverty, and Fresno's history in terms of athletic teams. We had a professional basketball, semi-pro basketball team that won a couple of championships, but still folded because we didn't have the people to come to their games. We had a semi-pro hockey team, the Fresno Falcons, that told Fresno, look, we could generate more money if you expand the arena, and we expanded the arena. And then they said, well, we could bring more people if you had luxury seats, and they brought in those luxury seats. I'm sure you've seen them, John, those big, look like Balka lounger seats, the black seats in the arena. And yet they won a championship, they won a few championships, and they still folded. You know, they still weren't able to bring people into the arena and into, you know, to support the team. They still were unable to do it because of the fact that 86% of the people in Fresno are simply too poor to buy tickets. You know, I mean, that's just a.
Well, let me ask you this,
caller.
if they're so okay, you may have a point there, and I'm not degrading what you're saying, but simply posing this question: why is it that people can afford to buy tickets to a soccer game and nearly sell out Chancey Park for a big-time soccer game, and you put soccer in there, they're going to fill it up? Last night you had over 14,000 people. They're averaging. Hang on, caller. Hang on. I'm talking about the average now is just over 6,500 for the Grizzly game so far this year. What would be so unusual for asking maybe can we average 8,000? 8,000 a game would be phenomenal for this area, and that stadium holds 12,500. Go ahead, caller.
Remember, John, that 72% of the people who live in the valley are Hispanic, and that the most popular sports in Mexico and South America is soccer.
Well, tell me who these people were last night at the ball game.
Soccer team up here to Fresno, it's going to excite them because now we don't have to watch it on television. We can actually come to the stadium and get rowdy.
Who were these?
Yes,
but wait a second.
It only happens a few times a year.
Hang on. Who were these people that showed up last night? More than 14,000. Where did they come from?
Well, you know what? I mean, like I said, John, only a few times a year this happens, so you can save your pennies up for only a few times a year. You know what I'm saying? And to fill up a seat, but you can't. But in terms of spending an entire, I don't know how many how many games there are, home games there are for an entire baseball season. But to say, let's say there's 50 home games in a season, to ask someone to say, well, I can go to 3 soccer games in a year that come to Fresno, but to ask me to go to 50 Fresno Grizzly games in a year, that's a little much.
Okay, hang on, caller. Hang on. Go ahead.
The problem is that you can't get the venue to hold these soccer games unless you have something like a baseball team to support it and to pay the bills. So the soccer games are only the gravy because we can't do more than 3 or 4 of those a year. So, and you can't spend $40 million on a stadium for a 4-event season.
The numbers don't bear out.
So you really need the baseball team, and I think let me finish, please.
Turn him down, Kerry. Don't turn him off, but turn him down.
You really need to have the anchor, and what the mayor has done, what the city council has done, is set a parameter that an owner can use to have the baseball team work. And I'll agree with you. There are a lot of people in Fresno who are not wealthy, but that's a fact. So we have 2 choices. We can either have nothing in Fresno, or we can put together things that work and have the amenities for the people who can afford them. Now, we're also doing things to help the people who can't afford it. We're working with the Fresno Housing Authority to put together a program to provide tickets for the low-income housing folks and the subsidized housing folks so they can go to a baseball game without having to worry about ticket price. So, you know,
you are working with
we're working with them. We're actively working with them now. So I appreciate your sentiment, and I wish it was possible to operate the stadium on 3 or 4 events a year. But what the solution, and I think the new ownership group is moving in that direction, is increase the number of events, because if you increase the number of events, then you can start generating revenues, and the net revenues are what the team needs to survive.
Let's roll a videotape, Carrie, on the Grizzlies crowd number 2, and I want to talk a little bit about the crowd. I know the caller is on hold. Just hang on, caller. I want to talk about the crowd because, like I said, attendance is up on average this year. Listen to this, caller. Over 6,500 a game. That's more than last year. Of course, we're not, you know, season's not done yet. But I had this argument with Craig Chardon. I know you know Craig.
Yes.
Look, the baseball stadium, and I've said this a dozen times on this program already. If you build around the stadium and you give people some entertainment, so they go to a ball game and they have something to do after, instead of just getting in their car, blah, and just driving home. If you give them an entertainment place, and not just a beer place, it's got to be more than a beer place. It's got to be something for the kids. You know, people want to take their kids to the ball game. So something for kids. You know, kids can't drink beer, so you have to have some entertainment. And if the city has dropped the ball, and I made this argument, the city has dropped the ball in building around that stadium and revitalizing downtown Fresno. They're getting cap and trade money from Sacramento, and Lee Brandt, I guess the mayor, is going to try to use that money to help revitalize downtown. But do you think the attendance would go up if you had something else around it, entertainment after the game?
Absolutely, and that's again, the successful teams have that type of have those types of operations around them. That's the model. Now, in response to the caller who's on hold, you know, if we were in need of 5,000 people per game more to break even, I would be able to buy into that type of argument a little bit more. Yeah. If we have 1,000 people a game, which isn't a huge number in a $500,000 or 500,000 person city and a 1.5 million metropolitan area, if we had 1,000 more per game, that makes a difference of $1.2 million.
Before I run out of time here, I know the caller's on hold. We got a minute and a half. When will the sale be complete and final? I know the Pacific Coast League has to sign off on it. Who else has to sign off?
Well, right now we have a letter of interest from the prospective buyers.
Okay.
We have a draft of a purchase agreement. We need to finish that document.
Okay.
Then the Pacific Coast League, Minor League Baseball, and Major League Baseball need to sign off on it.
Oh, Major League Baseball has to also?
Yes.
And the Pacific Coast League.
True, but these folks all have been accepted by baseball before. They all have great reputations. So those are
Does the city have to sign off on it
formalities.
again?
I think once we get the full purchase agreement done, even if it's not a requirement, as a courtesy, I'm going to let the city look at it and opine on it, just because they've been nice to me. So I want to.
And this will happen when, at the very latest, do you think?
Right now, I'm ready to move forward tomorrow. We're waiting for the buyers.
Would you say in the next 30 to 45 days?
45 days would be optimistic.
Okay.
75, somewhere between 45 days and 75 days, it should happen.
So it's going to happen, and that means it'll happen after the season is done, huh? Probably.
Could be in August, or it could be right after the end of the season.
Yeah. Well, Chris, you're a friend of this program's. Always, you're welcome here any time, and you're a friend of mine, and I appreciate your friendship over the years, and congratulations if this thing actually goes through.
Now, if you had great coffee and free Wi-Fi, you might have an awful lot of people down here in your audience.
Hey, just a quick note, too.
Sure.
The Grizzlies have their own television channel, Coca-Cola Broadcasting. Check it out. It's on free television. It's 24 hours a day. Chris Cummings, thanks for your time. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, John.
All right, tomorrow, Bariatric Surgery Surgical Center, Fresno Heart and Surgical, back tomorrow, and have a good day.
And away we go.
Here's the place that makes you smile. Stick around and stay a while. We're the home of great TV. That's memorable. That's me.
Follow me, sir.
Call them classics, call them the best. Call them favorites, be our guest. Every day there's more to come. Watch and see, there's only one. Me TV.
All you have to do is watch me.
Are you kidding?